Hello, hello, everyone. How's it going? Yeah? Did you have a good lunch? Lunch was nice. Who here is actually from Portugal? All right, only half of you. So the rest of you on holidays. Great. This is my first time in Portugal, even though I live in Spain. So I should have been here a lot longer, a lot earlier. But I'm here now. Anyway, whilst people are coming in, we're going to have some fun today. This talk is about testing. Who here likes testing? Okay, a good few of you. So I might end up killing you all. Who here hates testing? Yeah, good. So that's why you're here, because you don't want to ever test again. That's good. So we have a good mix of people here, right? And the aim of this talk today is to basically show you that it doesn't matter if you like testing or you don't like testing, that you're going to have zero excuse to test your applications from now on. That's the aim of this talk. We're going to go through AI-powered workflows with Playwright and MCP. Who here actually uses Playwright? Okay, that's not too bad. Who here has never heard of Playwright? Wow, I'm heartbroken. You haven't been following me at all. Oh well. But you're in the right room, that's okay. Who here knows what an MCP is? Who here does not know what an MCP is? Okay, you need to go to James's session tomorrow to learn about MCPs. What time is that, James? It's at the end. Okay. Oh, you put a slide in my slides? Oh, it's in the app. I thought you got into my slides and put his own promotion in there. Okay, so we're going to talk about MCP as well. Who is using the Playwright MCP? That's 4 people. What? 5. Okay, don't worry. You're all going to be... Never mind. We're going to get there. You're in the right room. That's basically why we're here. Okay, who am I? My name is Debbie O'Brien. I'm a principal program manager at Microsoft, and I focus on Playwright and building the Playwright community up. So I've been 3 years basically getting people and convincing people to write tests, and you have all been ignoring me and saying, no, I still don't have time. And 3 years later, I'm trying to give the same talk and getting you to write tests, and now I've given up. So we're just going to get AI to write all your tests from now on. That is actually what we're here for. And then a little bit about me. I actually love sport. I used to do a lot of sport. You've probably seen me cycling and running around if you ever follow me. But now my sport is basically pushing my twins around on their bikes, and they do the sport, and I'm just like, following them. So that is my life now. So if you all have kids, you'll probably all understand about that. What are we going to see today? We're going to have a look at how you can use natural language to book a swimming lesson and generate a Playwright test based on that. We're going to see how you can save a trace of what the agent did. You're going to see how you can record screenshots of steps taken. You're going to see how you can self-heal the tests and do some AI debugging to get the tests right after AI doesn't write the very good tests. And after I show you all that, then I'm going to basically say, right, forget everything I said, and then I'm going to introduce Playwright agents, which we released literally last week. Anybody seen our latest release? You are not following me, guys. Come on, you're the best. You win a prize. We're going to show you Playwright agents. So we're going to go into how Playwright agents work so that they can get tests written. And I'm going to go under the hood and do a deep dive on actually what's going on so that you don't walk into your companies and say, we need to use Playwright agents and what agents are scary, that you actually understand what agents are, how they work, so that all your companies can say, yes, this is amazing, go ahead and do it and get tests written. So that's the plan. Do feel free to, ask questions and cheer and, look like you're enjoying yourself. We're all having fun here. We're all in person, so do have fun. So a quick introduction to Playwright and MCP. So most of you know what Playwright is and are using it. Those who don't, Playwright is an open source library for testing, for automating your testing. So that basically before you would, you'd write a form, for example, code a form, and then you would test it by filling it out yourself, and then you get to like number 14, and then it's a mess, and you got to go fix that, and then you got to go test it all out again. And Playwright basically automates that process, so it will actually go through that form much quicker than you are, because at the end of the day, computers are quicker than us no matter what we say. So Playwright focuses on end-to-end testing. And it basically allows developers to write end-to-end tests and can simulate the user interactions of web applications. So it's web, browser-based only. And then Model Context Protocol. For those that don't know what MCP is, that's the new thing everybody's talking about. And it's not even a year old at this stage. We're getting there, but it's not even a year. MCP, I like to think of it as the superpowers that the LLM gets. The LLM can now use tools. It's like giving it a toolbox, giving it superpowers to do things it previously couldn't do. So when it comes to Playwright, you're allowing the LLM to now browse the internet for you. I use the Playwright MCP to buy tables and go shopping, for example, to fill out forms, to automate day-to-day things. But also, you can use it for testing, which is what we're really here today to learn. But you can do anything with it. So Playwright MCP, basically it's fast, it's lightweight, it's LLM friendly, and it uses snapshots of the page, the area accessible tree, as opposed to visual X and Y coordinates. So that's how it's able to get a better representation of the page, because it can actually see your code, it can see what the button is called, and it's able to do better. So, first of all, before I dive into how Playwright is working, I really want you to understand the difference between prompts, chat modes, and instructions. And I think this is really, really important. Is anyone writing prompts, chat modes, and instructions? A couple of you. Okay, good. Not too bad. So you should all be now trying to use prompts, chat mode, and instructions in order to not be reusing things, or not rewriting things from scratch, but to be reusing like the prompts you have. So this is how I was previously setting up things, right? I've got a chat modes folder, an instructions folder, and a prompts folder. My instructions folder, I have actually one for Playwright. I'm very specific about how I want Playwright to behave, what I want it to do. So I create an instructions, and this gets included in all my tests. And you can have an instructions for your application, and you can have an instructions specifically for testing. So again, forget about some of the tools here, because that's a bit old, and we'll be taking that away when we move on to the agents. But just know that you can write your own custom instructions to be able to then say, okay, whatever you do in your company, this is how you want it to be set up. And then you've got prompts. Now this is like basically a prompt is something you're going to reuse again and again, especially useful if you want to use it across multiple applications. It's good to write a prompt, and then, or maybe you want to run it later on because things have changed and someone else in the team will write a different prompt to you. So it's always good to save your prompts. I actually have a repo with like 25 prompts. I just keep creating prompts, and then I have a prompt library I can practically go and reuse. And then we have chat modes. Now, chat modes are basically what we're going to concentrate a lot on in the end part of this session. And chat modes are basically what we call agents in a way. Okay, so chat modes you have when you're talking about VS Code, you're talking about the modes to use. It's ask mode, edit mode, and chat mode. Right? Ask, you ask the LLM to do something and give you back some information. Edit, it can edit the files. An agent, it has the powers to actually modify the things for you. So you can go and say, in agent mode, create me an application, it will create an application. In ask mode, it will just say, this is how you create it, go do it yourself kind of thing. And then you have chat modes, which basically is you creating your own modes, your own chat modes, so your own agents, basically. So let's go into exploring and generating. I want to show you just a very quick demo of how you can basically explore. So this is something I already generated, which was a test plan, right? So I went ahead and generated this, and it's like, I could never, well, I probably could, but I spent ages writing all this, right? And then I basically, just for this demo, I simplified it just to take one specific example. And this is a true story. I was going to Croatia on holidays, and I wanted to book a swimming lesson for my kids in the hotel. It was for free, and I was like, yeah, I'll go book it. And the website wasn't working. So I got really annoyed, and I was like, oh my God, my husband was actually booking it. And he wasn't working, and I was like, of course it works, of course it works. And then I was like debugging it. It was a JavaScript error. So I was like, they don't even have testing. They're not using Playwright. And no, I'm not. So I'm going to write a test for them. So this is why I ended up writing this test. So this is me actually going ahead and using the mode, the chat mode, my personal test generator that I built myself, right? Very simply by just that one file, giving it a job to do and telling it what to do. And there's the LLM basically going through, parsing that test file to basically read through it and see what it needs to do. And then once it's read through its to-dos of everything it has to do, then it's going to go ahead and it's going to book the swimming lesson for me in a way. And I actually did use it to book the swimming lesson. And we did have the swimming lesson. It's actually very good. So here it's basically, based on the test plan, it needs to navigate to that hotel website. It needs to click on the experiences. So it has a list of all the things that it has to go through. Now it's opening up, using the Playwright MCP server to opening up that browser. It's going to that hotel company website, and it's going to try and find that swimming lesson. Now, I do not work for this company. I do not have access to their code. I can write this test by basically using it like a user would. And that's really how you should all write tests. You should write your tests focused on the user, not focused on the code underneath it. The code underneath it is important only when it comes to what the button is called, what the user sees, and the MCP server has access to that by running the page snapshot. By running the page snapshot, it can see the actual code, it can see the button is called this, and you can see I had some errors there. I tried to click on something and it couldn't do it. And that's because there was a cookie banner in the way, so I had to figure out, I had to use the evaluate JavaScript tool there from the MCP server to basically go along and find a way to get that out of the way, to click what it needs to do, because it's able to understand the page and then remove some JavaScript if it needs to, and then it will kind of like get to its point. So this is basically really cool, right? It's navigating to the URL now. It's successfully navigated the Academy's page, and it's going to go ahead and find that swimming lesson. It can take a screenshot as well, because I specifically instructed it in this test plan to take a screenshot of every single step along the way. Why would you want to do that? I don't know, but maybe you would. So I just said, I'll do it because it's cool, and then I had all these cool screenshots. But it is cool for documentation. Sometimes I ask it to go to websites, take screenshots, and get some screenshots for documentation. But some people who do testing said that they like to have screenshots. And we could do maybe visual regression testing. I don't know. There's a lot of things you can do there. So here we go. There's my swimming lesson. And the problem is that they actually fixed the site before I had time to actually write the talk. So I was really annoyed. I was hoping to actually get the broken site and show you all that. But I sent them the message. I don't know if it was my message that actually made them fix it. But on Monday morning, their developers had that site fixed. So that's how I was able to book the lesson and show you a working example. So that's basically the Playwright MCP server being used here to generate tests. What do you think about that so far? Does it look good? Cool. Thanks. Is anyone using that already? 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 4 people, 5. OK, so not bad. OK, good. OK, I'm going to go fast forward a little bit because you can see that this is doing its thing, et cetera. Unless you want to see the actual test code that's outputted, but it's great test code, kind of. I'm going to show you that in a minute. So what happens when it generates that code is then you have to go ahead and fix some of the tests, right? And this is the problem that a lot of people are having. So there was some errors here in the actual test. So I went along and I ran through them. And why are there errors in the test? Why can the MCP server not do a perfect job? Because sometimes it'll take a page snapshot and there will be 2 buttons of the same. So this one had the expect to be visible with a timeout, get by role heading. So it couldn't find the heading of level 1. Now, when there's errors, you can go into the HTML report. You can read through all the error messages. I hate reading error messages. I'm just not good at it. So we do have in Playwright great ways of fixing your tests and debugging them. And that's to basically use the copy prompt button you probably saw there. This one had a timeout, so I just skipped through it. And then you can basically go through the HTML report one by one. You can come into the LM and say, right, go and copy the prompt, fix it in here. So this one, basically, the task's completed. And the screenshot was captured, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We keep going forward. When it comes to debugging it, there's a couple of options, right? You have down here in the actual terminal. You've got in the HTML report. You've also got in the trace viewer. And you've got in UI mode. I like to use UI mode. This is running from VS Code. This is a trace viewer, which is similar to UI mode. Now, you can actually go through each step. That's the great thing about when you run the test using Playwright. You have the trace of the test. And you go through each step, and you can visually see, actually, this is doing exactly what I wanted, or this is failing on this exact spot, or it's not clicking where I wanted it to click. Why is it not doing that? And get it to redo it, or fix it manually yourself. You can also actually save a trace of what the MCP does, which is the same as the trace viewer, just a little bit different because it actually goes through the trace of the LLM. So it actually says it took a page screenshot at each step as well. So I'm going to fast forward again through a little bit of this, okay? But this is going through each step. If you've never seen what the Playwright trace viewer is, this is the timeline at the top, each step. And then you've got the locators, the call, the log, the errors, the console, the network, the source, attachments. So you've got a lot of information there to help you debug tests. And then we have in Visual Studio Code, we've got a Fix with AI button, so you can go along and just click the button, click the button, click the button. So let's move on a little bit, because I want to get to the good the good part. This is the copy prompt button, right? It's just there. Very simple button. You press copy on it, and you copy a prompt that we've created for you, and you paste it into the chat. So once this test is failing, there's the error message. Instead of reading that error message, which is area has pop-up dialog, and you're like, oh my God, what's going on here? Just copy the prompt, and you open up a new chat, paste it in, and you can see like what is being given. This is what Playwright helps you with, right? It gives you the full context. You've got instructions in there. You've got test info in there. You've got some test source code in there. You've got everything that the LLM needs to make a very good judgment, the whole page snapshot, right? The whole test code. And then it can see like, oh, I know exactly what's going on here, and it can make a good decision. So imagine, this is really good. This is really fast, right? Does this help with debugging? No, yeah, a little bit, right? It is, but it's copy paste each time. So it's a little bit like, manual work. Copy prompt is available, like I said, in the HTML report, in UI mode, in trace viewer, and that means it's also available on CI, which is very important. If your tests fail on CI, you can download the trace, and you've got that same error message, that same copy prompt button, and you can just copy prompt, and you can paste it into any LLM, not just in VS Code. You can paste it into an online one, into ChatGPT even, and say, like, what's this doing, and see what it says. Then you've got Fix with AI. This is what I said is in VS Code, where you've got that red error message in here, and you've got this little icon, which is the starry icon, which is the magic, I call it the magic icon. And then you click this, and it's basically just going to read that same context that we input in there so that the LLM is able to make a better judgment of what went wrong, and it will fix it right there in line. So that's a nice, easy way of going through the test and saying, oh, let me fix with AI. Is that the right thing? Do I accept it? Do I not accept it, etc. And now it's the point where I'm going to tell you, forget absolutely everything I told you, because now we're going to do something completely different. In a way, not so much, don't worry. You still need to learn Playwright, you still need to know how to debug, because sometimes you might need to do it manually. But now we have Playwright agents, which we literally released 5 days ago, 6 days ago. So if you haven't heard of them, that's kind of, don't worry. So there's a whole documentation on agents, and you can read about that. And you should have seen the video. Anyone seen this video? One person? Lovely. Guys, you just have to follow me more. OK. Playwright testing agents basically come with a planner, a generator, and a healer. So if you've seen previously, I was going to chat modes. I was creating my own test generator. I was doing all the work and doing it all. And now we're giving it all for you. So once you update and use the latest version of Playwright, which is version 1.56, once you've updated to the latest version, you can just run a command, and we will basically give you these agents or these chat modes, depending on how you want to call it. And then you don't have to think about the instructions that you need to write or the job description of the agent or anything like that, because we do it all for you. We also give you all the tools. And then you can come along, and in VS Code, you can basically just open up the chat mode, and instead of agent, ask, or edit, you've now got these new chat modes: planner, generator, and healer. So let me show you a very quick video that I've fast-forwarded totally through all the generation thing to make it faster, just so you get an idea of how it works. So here I go to Planner. I say, generate a test plan for managing the movies list and save as movie list plan. Obviously, this is sped up about 10 or 14% or maybe 18%. So it's very fast. It's going through it. It's doing everything, using the website, figuring out what the movies list is, and then bang, it has a test plan. Now from that test plan, I select the next agent, the generator agent, and I say generate tests from the test plan. And I'm just using one scenario in this case, from scenario 3. And it's going along, and it's basically using that, generating all that. And you can see it is sped up again, so it would be a lot slower in your case. But here we go. We've got our tests. Now we've got our tests, and I go to the healer agent. And one of the tests here was failing, so I just go fix all those tests. And it runs. The healer runs through them. It opens up in debug mode. It runs everything. And then it'll figure out what it is, and happy days, the test will now pass. OK? That is Playwright agents. What does that look like? Good? All right. Does that look like too magic, or do you want me to explain and go deep? Is it kind of like, that's too good to be true, right? It looks magic. It is magic. It is magic made real. Right, we're going to go under the hood to understand it a little, because it does look magic. And when I first use it, I'm like, what's happening and what's going on here? So in order to get this running, all you have to do is run this command. Once you have the latest version of Playwright, you just have to run npx playwright init-agents --loop equals VS Code. You could also use Claude or OpenCode. They're what we support at the moment. I'm going to show you VS Code. And what this does is it generates these files for you. So in your .github folder, it will create a chat modes folder. And in the chat modes folder, it will have the generator. And you like the way we put the emoji in the actual file name, because we are cool. And that's what we can do. So we call it theater emoji generator.chatmode. So playwright healer.chatmode and playwright planner.chatmode. Then we get a VS Code MCP JSON file that's generated for us. So I'm going to go into that in a few minutes as well. And then very, very important is the last file that is generated for you. We're going to talk about that as well. So first of all, very important to understand is that this is using an MCP server under the hood. You don't have to install the MCP server. And it is not the same MCP server as I showed you to book the swimming lesson. That was the Playwright MCP server, which we still, you can still use for testing, and we still use it for browser automation. But now we encourage you to use the test MCP server, which is the Playwright test MCP server specifically created for testing. Some of the tools are obviously the same because you need to navigate, click, hover, etc. But we have added new tools into this specifically for testing, such as running in debug mode. So the LLM can run in debug mode and pause in a particular part of the page and debug, or verifying logs so it can read through the stuff that it's just done to be able to create a better test. So this is really important, but this is generated for you. So I'm showing you this, but you don't even need to worry about it. You don't need to do anything. It just gets put into your local workspace, and it runs from there. But just so you know, it is using an MCP server under the hood. And obviously, you can configure some things in here if you wanted to. So that's where you would go to if you wanted to add. For example, I put headless in there, just so when I'm doing too much work, I don't want to know what's going on. It's like, just go and do your thing. So you can put your arguments in there. Then you've got the seed.spec file. Now, this is basically a seed is what you would use before you start writing your test if you needed your test to be seeded, right, to have specific information beforehand. I use it in the example I do in the movies app because I'm testing the movies list feature. And to get to the movies list feature, I already have a fixture, a Playwright fixture. Anyone using Playwright fixtures? Ooh, not enough of you. OK, so Playwright fixtures is a very cool feature where you can reuse code. So some people use maybe page object models. Do you use that? Yeah? OK, well, fixtures is cooler. Just saying. So fixtures is a way to reuse your code, specifically from Playwright. So I have a fixture where I basically open up the movies list. I create a movies list, so like my favorite movies, and I put 3 movies in there. So when I write my tests, I want all my tests to start at that specific point, that there's already a movie list created. I'm already logged in. There's a movie list created, and there's 3 movies in the list. And that code then is basically a fixture. So it's kind of like a page object in a way. So start on this particular page, and then continue writing the test. So with a seed file, when I put that code in there, I'll put that almost like page object model in there, that Playwright fixture in there, and it will copy it over into each test. But the code for the fixture is only written once, and then each test is using that, but that one line of like where to get to there is copied into the LLM. That's something that the LLM could not do before. We couldn't do it before with the Playwright MCP server, but now with this new test MCP server, we can, and that's really powerful. So think of anything you need to do to seed your test. You can leave it blank if you don't need anything, no problem. But if you needed to go to specific URLs, have specific pages, etc. So this is a fixture that I have for my movies app. And basically, it's importing the helpers, the list test helpers. And it's basically just saying that the list page is my page. And the const page, I want my page now to be called the list page. And then it will run through from that starting point. It's as simple as that. OK, then we have the Playwright Planner. So we've set up, and this is really important. When it comes to testing, now I don't want you all to just go home and say, right, I'm just going to go and generate tests. I want you to think about your application. I want you to think about how do I architect this so that it's going, the agents are going to do a great job. How do I make sure that everything is already set up first? Once everything is set up, then start getting the agents to work. But don't just go generating, because then you've got to have all this duplicate code, and then you've got to figure out how do I now unduplicate it. So start from the right position by thinking about the seed test first. So with the planner, I basically put in a simple prompt that said, generate a test plan for the movies list feature and use any utilities to reuse code. I only tested this out literally 2 days ago after we did the release, so this isn't in the release video. But people were asking about page object model, reusing code, and I had all these helpers of like adding a movie was a function, I wanted to reuse it, and I actually did respect it and did use it. So I was really impressed about how putting in, like, here's the utilities file, and I added in list utilities, I gave it into the context. I gave the seed into the context, and then I was able to ask the planner. Very important, you get this at the planner stage. The planner gets the seed. The planner gets the utilities, not the generator, the planner. You want everything in the test plan. If you've never written a test plan before, don't worry about it because it's going to generate it for you. But give it the right information and context you need. And obviously, if it doesn't create a good plan, you can refine it, refine the prompt, go and do it again, until you're kind of like happy, like, yeah, this is exactly what I want. This is using all the utilities I want it to use. What the planner does is it runs a setup planner page tool. So this is from the test MCP server. And you can see the input. It got the seed file. So I was able to read through that seed file. And now this is really important. And I want you to just watch and look here for a second. I'm not going to run anything, but just watch. It says running 2 tests using one worker, right? So ran 2 tests. What tests did it run? It ran my setup tests. Anyone using project dependencies in Playwright to do setup tests to log in? No? So when you log in Playwright, you can log in and use a project dependency. So basically, you have projects in Playwright in the config. You got Chromium, WebKit. And you can create your own projects. You create a setup one, and then you can say, all projects, I want you to run. The setup one has to, they all depend on the setup one. So then your login test will run first, and then you don't need to rerun that test because we have it in storage state, so it makes it quicker as well for developing. So the setup test is running and was able to log in. If you do it this way as well, the LLM can log in, but it has no access to your credentials. It can't read it. It just ran the test, and the test is using process.env. So the test was able to log in. The LLM was able to log in, but the LLM does not have my username or my password. Now that's really, really important. If you walk away with only that one thing today, walk away with that. If you set up your tests right, don't give LLM your credentials. Set up your tests, use the right tools, and then LLM can log in and everything is safe. So this is really, really cool. If people sometimes ask, what can the LLM see? It can see what's in that page snapshot. So if you're ever in doubt, you open up that page snapshot, do a like search, have a look, copy it, paste it, read it, and you will see. And I've tested out because the team told me, and I was like, I don't believe you, I want to see it myself. So I looked inside. It's not there. And that's how it works. So it ran the setup test first, and then it ran the seed test because it needed to get to the particular point that I wanted to test. So it ran the seed test, which basically not logged in, but created the profile, created the movies list, and created the 3 movies. And that's my seed test. And then it was like, right now, I'm ready to continue and do my job. So that's what that does. And that's basically just, yeah, walk away with that. Take that screenshot and show your bosses. It does not see your credentials. Ooh, I always point it there. I should go there. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I should go back on that one and explain that one. There we go. There we go. Yeah, so here you can see what it does. It's just running click, evaluate, navigate to URL, just like we saw in previous what the Playwright MCP server does. This is the Playwright test MCP server. So it's basically just going through your website, and then it goes and creates in the specs folder the actual test plan. Now, I specifically say I want it in the specs folder. I don't think it's really that important, but it sounds like a good folder to put it in, but you could totally put it in another one. So now the generator. You want the generator to have access to that test plan. That's all it needs because you've already given it the seed file. You've already given it in your utilities, your functions, etc. And then I basically, the way I've been doing this, and I've run it on various websites and various scenarios, is not to tell it to generate the whole test plan. Because the test plan is pretty long. It kind of creates a lot of scenarios. And you could totally refine it and remove some of the test plans if you want to, if you didn't want all of them. But I like to go through each section. And then give it just concentrate on section 1 and then concentrate on section 2. And yes, it's a little bit slower, right? Because it's going to do that and then do this. But I like to do things in stages and have it done right. So I actually did this because I was trying to figure out how do I know what tests I've written and what tests the LLM has written. So I asked it to put an agent tag in all my tests. So if you're using Playwright tags, it just puts the agent tag, and then I can use grep or in UI mode, I can use @agent, and then I can see these are all the agent tags. These are all the tests that the agent wrote, and then I can really refine them and check on them based on, and we can always in the future then, see is the agent doing a good job or not. So that's just my thing, but you don't have to do that. So I basically also say to write one test per file. We think that is actually a better way. It does a better job rather than putting in all the tests in one file. One test per file is better. So the first thing it does is it runs the setup page tool, similar to the planner tool, just a little bit different. And the setup page tool basically has the input of the plan. So it now is a test plan. But notice, it basically here says it's basically only got the information I asked it for. So that test plan had, 20 points, and I said take point 4 only, then in this input we'll only have from point 4 only. So it's not putting everything into context. It's putting in only the information it needs. So that's kind of important as well. So it goes ahead and it runs the logged in Chrome test. That's just the name I use for my projects. And then it runs the seed test. So it logs in and then seeds. So it's now got to the same stage. Kind of might look a little bit repetitive, right? The planner just did this and the generator is doing exactly the same thing, right? Yes, it is, but it's better that way if it can also open the website and then just follow the test plan. Now, you might already have a test plan. You might not need the planner agent. So you could just totally use a generator agent. So that's also why it's important that each agent is sufficient on its own and is able to, then do its own thing. So again, it runs a page snapshot to see the accessible tree and be able to see exactly what's going on and be able to make the right decision of what the locator is called. Here it ran click, type text. And then there's a new tool there. It uses the app basically like a user would. And then it verifies that the element is visible. So that's a new tool in the Playwright Test MCP server, verifying that it's actually on the page before it starts to write code. It verifies it's there. So the verify element, if you open it up, you can see the accessible name was my action movies. The intent, it wants to verify the page title, shows a new list. And then the name is heading. And then the results, look at that, the results done. It ran the Playwright code. So it's running the Playwright code to see if that actual code is right and it's going to work. Okay, so that's how the tests are much better, because it's already run the actual code to verify that locator exists on the page and that to be visible is actually visible. So that's really, really cool. Now, this is a new thing we added after many iterations and many debugging and testing, and then we were getting some errors and things were getting annoying, and it was like, no, you're not doing what I want. So we added this tool, which is retrieving a test log. This is really, really cool, because now it's instead of the LLM having to summarize everything it just did, and that was what was going wrong, it was summarizing and getting things wrong and mixing things up a little bit, we basically said, right, here's a log. This is it's writing down everything that it did, and now it can only generate the test based off that log. So here's the information it has, the seed file, the input from the test plan, and then all the things it verified. And now it can go and write the test based on the log only. If it's not on the log, it can't. So it stops it from making things up and hallucinating, basically. So we think this tool is really, really cool. So then it goes and runs the write test tool to write the actual test. And basically, it takes the input of the seed file, the code for the test, and runs the setup test and the seed test, and then writes the test. So it kind of runs through it first, and then goes ahead yes, this is ready, and writes that test. And then I pressed it too fast there, but right at the end there was another tool, which was the setup generator setup page tool being called again. So what's happening was, if I said to you before, I split it up into scenarios, and I said the test plan scenario, do scenario 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. It runs 3.1, it sets up the page for 3.1, it repeats the process for 3.2, it repeats the process for 3.3. Instead of basically just opening up the page planner once, going to navigate to the page once, and then trying to just do 10 tests. It's going to go off road, it's going to do things wrong. So that's why it's really important for it to just focus on small bits and then redo it again and again and again and again, which basically means it takes time. I'm not going to lie to you. It might take a good 20 minutes for it to go through all those tests. But in those 20 minutes, once you have the tool set to auto-allow, you can just walk off, you go have coffee, you can come back, and then all your tests are generated. And that is pretty cool. And now what happens if some of the tests fail, right? Do you actually believe this is good? Do you believe it's going to work? Yeah? I mean, you have to actually try it yourself, right? But The problem is sometimes the test will fail because there's no perfection yet. In AI is not perfect, and there can be some mistakes. So if there are mistakes and the test is failing, you can use the healer agent to say, run and fix tests. Now, the healer agent is very, very cool. It's my favorite agent, and you could use this on its own as well. Maybe you just have tests. You already written your tests. You just want to fix some tests. You can just use the healer agent. Totally fine. The healer agent has a tool which is called debug single test. So it's the only MCP server out there that can actually debug a test. It can stop a test in debug mode, and then it can read the console requests, it can read the console logs, it can read everything at that particular moment of time in the test to be able to see, read the accessible tree, and be able to read and go, I know it. So you know when it says, I can see clearly now. I see the error. Well, now it can, right? So believe this one, but don't believe the rest when they say that. So you can see here it reads the output of the error. It reads the seed test. It has all the information it needs to be able to make a good judgment of healing the test. There's the network requests. It was able to check the API calls. It was getting it 200, okay, this is coming back okay, this is not. If there was an API bug in there, it would find it. And look, good, I can see, right? I can see there was a successful API call. So everything is okay, the search completed. Let me check the actual drop-down content, and it continued. And then it got the console errors. Now there's an input here, only errors. We don't want to see all the rest of the console stuff. It's just the error. There was an error in there, but it was nothing to do with the test. It was on legacy behavior is deprecated. I need to update my code. But basically, it can read all that. It can see all that. There's no relevant errors. The issue is that the test approach isn't. It constantly says it knows what it's doing. But then it runs the tests again. And it runs them multiple times to ensure that there's no flakiness, because sometimes a test might pass because of a minor issue. It might fail the next time it runs. So it runs them again and again. So this is very, very cool. Now, someone asked me before, what happens when there's an actual application bug? What happens when there's something the test cannot fix? Does it just fix everything or delete something? And that's what happens with LLMs, right? They're like, oh, I'll just fix it. I'll just remove the code. I'll remove the test. So it has strict instructions to not. If it cannot fix the problem, that's totally okay. But then it needs to add a fix me to the test with a comment to say, now back in your hands, this is an application bug. Go ahead and fix it. And I was doing my demos. I have a couple of videos that actually show that, where it actually did find what it thinks is an application bug. And then I have to make that decision on, is that an application bug, or do I think it made a bad choice? But it's on my hands rather than just making things up. So this is really, really cool. So that is the healer. What do you think of the healer? Yeah? Good? I'm excited for you all to check it out, to be honest. I think it's very, very cool. So what I recommend, once you've got all these tests generated, is to run your tests in UI mode. I personally think UI mode is our best tool for visually seeing everything. Now, you saw before that I put the agent tag in there. And this is UI mode. It's like the trace viewer, only it's in developer mode. So you've just got the whole list of all your tests. So this is the test that I generated. And I've gone through them, and I've gone through various sites, and I'm constantly generating tests. And I'm surprised every day at how good it does it. And it literally, when I was creating the demo for the video, everything just kept working, and I was like, no, I need a test to fail because I want to show people the healer agent. No. So I didn't until I got to number 4. It found one particular error. It was an exact true that I had to put in for a locator that was twice in the page. So I was like, finally, I could use the healer. So I found just by using this that my tests are being written by LLM so much better, and then healer is healing it. While I walk away, it's just doing it, whereas before I was fixing with AI, I was copying that prompt, I was manually doing all that work, and I've saved so much time. So yes, in UI mode, you can go through it step by step, and you can actually then see, did it actually do the job? And you can, eventually you'll gain confidence. But when you don't have confidence, or you really want to check what it's doing, use UI mode and go through each of those tests and just walk through everything. Is anyone using UI mode? No. Oh my God, people. Breaking my heart. Okay, so what happens when you have generated all these tests, right? Because now you're going to have a hell of a lot more tests. Before you have, how many tests do you have? How many? 5? None? 4. 4 tests. How many do you have? 10. How many do you have? Yeah. Yeah. 11. 50. Who has 50 tests? Amazing. You're the best. Right? So we're talking 4 tests, 10 tests. That's terrible. You're going to have 100 tests in a very short space of time. I guarantee you. Now, you might decide, are they good tests? Are they worth testing? That's up to you. You can delete tests if you want to. If you don't want all those tests, you can merge tests. You can play around with that if you want to. At the end of the day, you want your application tested. You want your tests to be written. You want them to actually be testing what the user is doing. And I've had the LLM doing a lot of stuff where it's testing so much. It's testing things I never thought about. Like in the search feature, it was testing for edge cases I never thought about. And I'm like, oh my God, well, this is actually a really good thing to test. I'm going to leave those tests in there. So you're now going to have 100 tests. What do you do when you have 100 tests? Ignore. I love it. Ignore. Walk away. You ask for pay rise. When you have 100 tests, you go to your boss and say, I've got 100 tests. I need more money. I'm doing a great job. You go have long coffees. You don't tell your boss you have 100 tests. And then you go on a week's holiday, and then you pretend you did an extra week's work. Well, we do have a service called Playwright Workspaces for that time when it happens, when you have, say, 1,000 tests. When you have a lot of tests and you want to run tests with cloud-based browsers. So when you do have this problem, you don't have this problem now, you definitely don't have this problem, but when you have this problem, after you've played around with Playwright agents, you can then go to Playwright Workspaces on Azure, and you can accelerate tests with parallel remote browsers, and they're just going to run in the cloud. It's going to be much faster, and you're not going to have that problem of my tests take too long to write, and you're going to be complaining that you've got all these tests now. What do you do? Well, that's what you do. So there you go. No excuses. I told you, you're going to walk out of here. You have absolutely 0 excuses to write tests, 0 excuses on how many tests you have. So a couple of tips that I want you to walk away with. This is just things I do. You don't have to do what I do. I use headless. I put it in the args of that MCP JSON file in VS Code just because it's going to be opening up that browser, and I'm also doing other work. So I'm multitasking. So I'm doing other work, and the agent is creating all those tests, and it's opening up that browser. And I find that sometimes a little annoying because now I have confidence. I don't need to watch it. I don't need to babysit it. I'm going to watch that later in UI mode. So I like it to do its thing. If I put headless in there, it means the browser will not pop up. It will run just like it would run on CI. It runs with no GUI, no UI, no browser, no nothing. And it just does its job. But it's actually still doing it in headless mode. So it's still able to open the browser, just you don't see it. So that's not something we even document because it's cool to watch the browser pop up, but I find it annoying when you're doing a lot of tests and a lot of stuff at the same time, so that's my tip. Chat.tools.global.autoapprove is the most dangerous thing you could ever do because you're basically saying, I allow everything to be auto-approved, but because the only thing I do is testing and the only MCP server I use is the Playwright Test MCP server, I have full confidence that it's only going to use those tools, and I can say, go ahead and auto-approve it. And then I never have to click approve to anything. It just does it. So I walk away. You saw in the videos how it just ran. That's how it's running because I'm using that. But you can also click on the buttons manually yourself, allow each time, or allow in each session, or allow in a specific workspace. That's up to you, but that's my tip, as in, like, you can turn it on and turn it off, right? So, when you're writing tests, and then when you're doing the dangerous stuff, then turn it back on. Commit tests before using any healing. I think this is really important. Especially commit the test plan and just keep committing. So you've got the test, commit the tests. You can always undo a commit if you're not happy, but commit them first. Then run the healer. And then when the healer actually heals something, you've got the git diff, and you can really go through it properly and say, actually, this is not what I want, this is what I want. But really important to constantly use commits each time. And don't generate too many tests in one go. Like, do it section by section like I showed you. It's totally fine to slow down and just do it bit by bit. So that's my tips. Now, if you want to learn more about it, we do have documentation. We have that video that is, that's a short video, 5 minutes. We also have a deep dive. Everything that I talked about today is actually on a video on YouTube, so follow the Playwright YouTube channel to watch through that as well. And something that's also very cool. You probably saw, anyone here see in Amanda's talk, GitHub Copilot Coding Agent? Yeah? Is anyone actually using GitHub Copilot Coding Agent? It's a big, long GitHub Copilot Coding Agent. A couple of you are using it. Excellent. Who doesn't even know what I'm talking about? All right, that's good. You all know what I'm talking about. That's amazing. So GitHub Copilot coding agent, not Copilot that's in VS Code, but the Copilot coding agent that's in GitHub, right, running on CI, actually uses the Playwright MCP server under the hood right now today. When you're using it, if you ever go to the logs, you will see when it says I can see, and you'll see the tools it's using. It uses the Playwright MCP server. We are integrating, and it's not there yet, but check out maybe next week, the week after, maybe check at GitHub Universe. There might be an announcement, there might not, we don't know. We're working on it very, very closely with the team. We're just fixing a couple of bugs, but we're having those agents work in GitHub Copilot coding agent. So just imagine, we're not there yet, we might be there next week. Just imagine, you create an issue, and you say, I have a movies list feature, and I would like some tests for it. Go ahead and write the test plan, generate the tests, and fix them. And it goes and does it while you're asleep. Happy days, right? That's what we want, because I know you don't write tests. You have 4, you have 5, you have 11. It's not good enough. So we need our apps tested so I can book swimming lessons without having to actually tell the hotel that their website doesn't work, right? We cannot have this happening. So do check that out. I think that's going to be super cool to have these agents working under the hood, that we're not babysitting, that we're not sitting there and clicking all the buttons, because testing is super important. We need it to be done. Now, I don't know how you feel about, agents writing tests. I don't know. What are your thoughts? What do you think about agents writing the tests? Good? This is awesome. I like it. Good. Yes? Is anyone here thinking, oh, I don't know. I want to hear it. Be honest. Anyone a bit kind of like doubtful about this? Yeah? Why are you doubtful? That's a very good. So he said because maintenance then becomes a big problem. And that is very true. And that's why it's very important that when you start writing your tests, you think about the maintenance problem of like duplicate code, of seeding your tests, of using fixtures, of getting the tests into the right stage. Then you won't have as much manageable problems when it comes to that. But also, you can just regenerate tests because they're so cheap to regenerate. So if you modify the application, if you do a big change, you can just regenerate everything. You can just use the GitHub Copilot coding agent, maybe next week or the week after in the future, to go and do it, and it's just going to do it. And yes, it costs a token or whatever, but it's still going to save a hell of a lot of time. So this is really, 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 like, I want you to seriously all go home and actually just try it. And I will say, take half an hour of your day, right, to get a really good website that you want tested, be it the one you work on or any test online. I did a hotel website. You could do any website. But go ahead and try it out. And I say 30 minutes because it needs to run through the code and it needs to take time to do it. But during that time, you can walk away and do something else and then just come back and go, I'll have a look in there. But I want you to take 30 minutes and I want you to try it. And if you don't like it, I want you to message me personally on LinkedIn and say, this doesn't work or this did a terrible job. Right? And I will report that back to the team to say, this doesn't work, this is a terrible job, and I want to know why. Because I'm convinced that you're all going to be blown away by it, and you're going to have all these tests, and you're going to be going, Debbie, what was that service you mentioned about, I now have 1,000 tests, and what's that called again? You're the one that's going to message me, I guarantee it. Does anyone have any questions? Yes? Very good question. Yes, this Playwright Test MCP server only works for the JavaScript in a way. Yes, it's running on the Playwright Test MCP server. I'm trying to push for Python support as the next step. And what were you looking for? Yeah, sorry. So .NET, I'm not sure right now. We have to, because it goes through the test runner, so it's not as easy as the actual Playwright test runner. We have more capabilities of running in debug mode. I don't know how we can run in debug mode when it comes to .NET. But at the moment, you can still run the Playwright MCP server with .NET. But you could also just write your tests JavaScript and then maybe migrate them to .NET if needed. I don't know, just an idea. But you can still use the Playwright MCP server totally. And maybe we will be working on this. Again, this was released last week, not even a week. So there's still time for us to progress to other languages. But good question. Anyone else have any questions? Any doubts? Any problems? Who thinks this is cool? Show me your hands. I love it. James, did you take a picture? Got the boss in the room and you didn't. Are you ready? Everyone, who thinks this is cool? Well, no, he's not ready. Go away! Okay, so there's 10 minutes left to go. You're welcome to go and have coffee. You're welcome to ask me a question right now. You're welcome to come up here. I hope I've covered everything. You should have no doubts. Playwright, it all works under the hood. Just tell your bosses that it does use an MCP server, but it's running locally on your machine, on that workspace, so it's not doing anything weird. It's very safe if you set up your tests right. Okay? If you basically put into your test plan your credentials, then the LLM is going to have your credentials. So you have to think about how to do it. Look at project dependencies for running setup tests before other tests. So that is a JavaScript only way of doing things. So if you're using other ones, then just think about how you set up your test. So the LLM does not have access to your credentials. Yes?
I like it a lot. We've been testing out a lot of the Playwright MCP as well. We've been experimenting, comparing the differences without MCP, with MCP, understanding those differences. For example, for the target audience, we have people who are programmers, developers, we have testers, who are not scripters. They don't like programming, they're afraid of the code. Are you basically teaching also how to use the recorder? I think it's very good for non-programmers, right? And this is even a step further, right? For automation, locators are scary, even for developers. How are you approaching this? Are you trying to spread the word to both sides, testers and programmers?
That is the longest question I've ever received in my life. So to summarize, how are we putting this to kind of people who are using code, to people who are not using code, to people who are, they said people are afraid of the locators, etc. I mean, who here actually writes Playwright test code? All right, who here is afraid of test code and Playwright? See, there's no one afraid. I don't know who you're talking to. But there are people who are no-code people. You can totally get people who don't know how to code to use the Playwright test MCP server. You just need to use it in VS Code, for example. You could use it in Claude Code. It is a kind of a code environment, right? But you can still get them to use it because you saw in the prompts, I didn't write anything that was specific code-based. So they can totally go and write those tests. And then you can have the people who are more proficient in Playwright, in test code, in the app, to go through that, right? Human in the loop always. Make sure everything's okay. Don't just PR everything and hope for the best. All right, check on everything. So the Playwright test MCP server is a little bit more developer focused because it is built into kind of code. But there are going to be more solutions for sure coming up where it's kind of less developer focused and more like just write the code, just write the tests, and then eventually you have someone go through them. I mean, everything is possible. So I would just say, get the non-developer people to be less afraid because you don't need them to care about the actual name of the locator. You want them to care about when you open up UI mode and you go through those steps. That button was clicked, this dropped down, this was clickable, and this happened. What's the locator called? I don't know, I don't care, right? That's where we need to go. Care less about what it's called and more about what it did, and it did the actual right thing, if that makes sense. Good question, even though it's long. Anyone else got any? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, great question. So why is the healer agent even necessary? Why can the generator not just, make sure the tests are good and just auto healer? A couple of reasons why it's separate is because not everyone needs to generate tests. There's a lot of tests out there, they're broken. So you want to be able to use a healer just to go and heal those tests. So you're aiming for different kind of people, different use cases. And also because the generator is doing a great job, but you don't want them constantly just debugging as well and adding that extra tools in there. So we're splitting up the tools across the different agents. When it comes to generating the tests, it pretty much does a very, very good job, but sometimes there's a little kind of a small error, like there's 2 buttons on the page, and when it goes to run the test, it didn't know which one to click because Playwright has a strict mode violation where if there's 2 login buttons, one at the top and one at the bottom, or one in a mobile menu, right, that cannot be seen on the page, but it's on the accessible tree, then it's going to go, I don't know which button you want me to click, so it runs an error and says failure, and it's like, I don't know how to fix this, and then that's when the healer agent will debug it, and then it will kind of look at, I can see the one it wants to click, and it will be either put a first or exact true, because maybe it's log in now, log in later, or log in, and then there's a log in only. So it will, fix that test, and you can decide, is that fix good enough or not? But the healer agent actually does work pretty well on its own to fix some of those tests that you've already got and you're trying to debug. So, but good question. Okay, anyone else got any questions? Yes, sir. I'm kind of like, you're too far away for me to fully hear. I heard, come forward a bit. You can stand up, come forward. How do I think it changes the professional testing in general? So everything is changing, unfortunately. Life changes, and that happens. And we evolve, and our tools help us do better jobs. So I think that it's going to take away the mundane tasks of the person who's testing, that they're constantly doing the repetitive work, and that's going to be taken away so they can focus and ensure that tests are actually very good quality, right? How does it do that? By ensuring that we've got the good test plans, by going through those tests, by making sure that we have the best coverage possible. Like at the moment, we don't have test coverage. So I don't know, is all my app tested? Somebody's going to have to go and look at that and actually see, is everything actually tested? Because I think it is, because the LLM told me it did a good job, but do I actually know, right? So we need the testers to be able to look for the code coverage, the quality, and make sure everything is okay. But obviously things are changing, and I do think it makes the tester's job more fun, better, easier. But that's my opinion. You'll have to ask the tester that. I would love some testers to test it out and tell me what they think. But yeah, but everything is changing. AI is changing everything. And we should embrace it and use it to our advantage. And we can get a lot more tests run, a lot more tests written. There are so many websites out there that are broken. I tried to book a flight to come here, and the Iberia website was down. It was the technical error. I was like, come on. I was getting so frustrated. People, we need to have no bugs. Imagine a world where the internet has no bugs. It'd be amazing, right? It'd be boring. Did you say it'd be boring? You'd have no job. It'd be boring. No, it'd be so creative because we can just build more apps. Because everyone is vibe coding, and using all the tools, and I've got a session tomorrow on GitHub Spark where we're going to build an application. We are building more and more apps. I know my boss is building an app every single day. He has a new app. He comes to me, I've got built this. I just built this, right? He's got to test all those apps. He does not have time for testing. He doesn't even like testing, but now he has no excuse. So he's writing those tests with the agents. We are going to have more apps, and more companies are going to have more apps that do not live even maybe long term, but still need to be, like marketing campaigns especially, that only run for a week. You just build a whole app for it, bang, done in a short space of time, tested, it all works, the money's going to come in, the company's happy, move on, next app is created. We're going to see a lot more apps, so we need a lot more tests. So I don't know, I think it's exciting, but it is also worrying for sure because things change, but I think it's very exciting that we can do so much now that 10 years ago we couldn't even imagine. So yeah, it's cool. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah. Well, there is a Figma MCP server, so you could totally just plug that in and say, here's my design, and check that off. You can take a screenshot with the Playwright MCP server, and you could even add in and then compare the Figma design to the screenshot and say, right, this is exactly how you did it. And so yeah, there's a lot of cool things. I mean, I only showed you a small amount of stuff, but you could expand this out to many places. We even have a Chrome extension or browser extension that actually can go and use a specific profile to run the MCP server on. So you had a test profile. Not the Playwright test MCP server, because that's running locally mainly, but if you were testing on a specific URL and you wanted to set up a whole profile and navigate to that profile only and test on that one, you can totally do that as well. So there's so much happening that we don't have enough videos out there to teach you all the things because we're developing at such a fast pace. So it's really hard to keep up for sure, but that's why you walk away from this talk and all you got to do is you need to run that command that I showed you. You need to spend 30 minutes of your day, whatever, one day of the week, 30 minutes, and you need to write those tests, and then you need to send me a message and say, Debbie, you rock. I have 1,000 tests. What was that URL you told me about for when I need to scale and run my tests in the hosted browsers? Everyone, we're at time, so thank you very much. I really appreciate it. This has been great fun. I've enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of the day. And come chat to me anytime.